Professor Lerkkanen, and can I invite please Don Futterman, CEO of ICEI.
Thank you, Ambassador Saarela, for your hospitality, and Susanne for helping to make this visit happen. Thank you, Professor Lerkkanen. It's been a pleasure. We've been together for 2 days, but it feels like a month, and we've learned a great deal already. We've learned so much. I think for us what's very exciting is to see a lot of the assumptions that we've been operating on reaffirmed by what we are learning about education in Finland and how language is taught, which is really at the core of our mission as well, and to see that there's still a lot for us to learn. So we are waiting to come see some Finnish schools and see what we can bring back. I want to zoom out for a minute. This way, okay, so you can see the, it's all right, we're not going to look at that too much anyway. Zoom out for a minute and say that we see one of the greatest challenges facing Israel's education system today is the correlation between socioeconomic status and outcomes. Almost across the board, we see low outcomes in high poverty areas and poor schools. We see better outcomes in the middle, and we see the best outcomes in the wealthiest schools. And that is a challenge for Israeli society for today and for the future. And we think the clock is ticking, that if we don't deal with this soon, we are going to be creating a problem for generations to come, not just for right now. We started getting involved in this about 12 years ago through a foundation that I represent, the Mariah Fund, together with the Fidel Association. Dr. Nagis Mengesh is the founder of that organization, is here. And we asked ourselves a simple question. Why are the Ethiopian Israeli children in our school system consistently having such low achievement levels? Why within the Jewish sector are their outcomes year after year the lowest of any group? Again, we always had individual children who were exceeding, who were doing very, very well, but as a group, the outcomes were very disappointing, and there were many programs, there were many efforts to try to help them. There were all kinds of remedial efforts, there were all kinds of enrichment programs, and it was not doing the job. So we started to look at schools that were succeeding better here in Israel. We went to the United States and looked at schools that were succeeding in low-income areas despite all odds, or were succeeding with immigrant populations despite all odds. And at every one we said, what are you doing differently? Why is your school different than the school across the street where the results are still so bad, where the school culture is still so destructive? And we heard again and again, you must focus on language. You must give these kids the language skills. Now, over the years that we've been working from the outset, and because our allies in the Ethiopian community told us they no longer wanted parallel tracks, they wanted integrated programs, we've always worked with all the kids in the schools that we've been in. And we've seen that this problem of weak language skills is not unique to the Ethiopian community. They had an additional challenge that, except for a small cadre of urbanized or educated elite within the community, the majority of the immigrants came from poor villages and were illiterate. So they could not read or write in any language. And so, as you mentioned, the home was not there. There was no culture of reading books in the house. There were no books in the house. And there were no readers in the house. So children had no role models. Nobody was reading to them or inviting them to engage in language or promoting their higher order thinking verbally from an early age like most of our children are. So very quickly, and I'll ask afterwards Eti Buchspan, who is our Director of Education, our Pedagogical Director, to go into some details, give you a couple of examples, because we don't have very much time. But we built a model to go into a school, first of all, to do on-site professional development of teachers. As you mentioned, Professor Lerkkanen, the teachers have to both know how to teach more effectively, and they have to have the confidence that they're going to succeed. They also have to believe that the children are going to succeed. One of the things we saw across the board was very low expectations. The teachers did not expect the children to succeed. The children did not expect they would succeed. 12 years ago, when he asked these children what they wanted to be, at least the Ethiopian Israeli children said security guards or cleaning women, because that's what their parents were. Those are the only jobs that they could get. Today, when we ask them, they say they want to go into high tech, they want to be professors, they want to be lawyers. So we can see aspirations can change in a very short time. We brought into the school with in cooperation with our partners at the Ministry of Education, particularly with the Department of Elementary Education. We brought into every school a full-time literacy instructional coach to support the teachers on site under actual classroom conditions. We enrich the classroom environment. We want these kids to read, and we want them to read a lot. So we put in 500 to 1,000 books in every single class. The books were leveled by difficulty so the children could be reading at their just right level at any time. We didn't want to hold back the high flyers, the high achievers. We didn't want to frustrate the struggling learners. We also track the student progress. We collect a lot of data. We created a very friendly, I think the most user-friendly system for collecting and assessing data, and we taught the teachers how to use that data to design their instruction, not to judge them. We wouldn't want to hand out grades for the teachers. We wanted them to understand how they could help every child advance and really individualize or differentiate the instruction as much as they possibly could within the class. We also saw that the 4 modes of learning, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, which is the core of literacy, all support each other. And we had to teach the teachers how to use one to strengthen the other and not see them as separate islands or as something you do linearly, first teaching reading and only later writing. Speaking supports writing, writing supports reading, and on and on. We also discovered that children learn in different modalities. Children learn visually, children learn through auditory means, they learn tactilely, they learn kinesthetically, and we try to teach the teachers to use all of those modalities. Teachers tend to focus on the visual. That's what we're good at. We're good at pointing at the screen. We wanted them to find other ways to reach the children. The children would come forward and they would connect to the modality that was most relevant for them. We also worked with the parents because we knew that the home had to be the partner in this. The children are home much more than they're in school. For our first target population, the Ethiopian population, we had parents who had no experience with schools. So using Migashrim to go into the homes and teaching the parents how to support the children's education in the home, how to create a study area, how to sit with a child with a book even if they couldn't read that book, but to engage in a conversation and to encourage the child to study, to invest, to learn, again, working on their motivation, trying to strengthen the nexus between the school and the home. These are the keys of what we're doing. Of course, what I didn't mention was you work with the principal. Everyone knows that the most important person in any school is the principal, and that's where you have to begin. So every principal gets a principal mentor, and the principal mentor helps the principal take ownership of this whole process. So over time, what we've seen is that we can strengthen the children's engagement. We can increase their motivation. We can encourage them to read and write. We'll have special activities like an annual writing competition. Last year, we got 1,000 stories. Next month, we're publishing a book of 28 stories with Yediot Sfarim, all written by children in our competition, all from children living in low-income schools. Then they will see that, then other children will see that, and again, that will strengthen the motivation and feed into the whole cycle. So we couldn't do this without a lot of partners, and I see some of our partners here in the room tonight, our partners from Yedda, some of our philanthropic partners, Gila Kroll from the Ministry of Education. We work together, and we think that this is a potential to level the playing field. Education is ultimately the great equalizer, and for low-income populations in this country, we think it's the only equalizer. It's the only opportunity they are going to have to compete in this society. So today, we started with Ethiopian Israeli kids, and we still are focused on that population, but today we've expanded that mandate to any low-income school to help the children in Israel. Again, literacy is the key, education is the way, and working together, we think it's possible to make a lot of progress. Thank you very much.